of a dumb question, but how do you work at practice on avoiding sacks, since it's kind of a multi-layered issue and it can be almost conceptual? How do you work on it?
Everybody doing their job at a high level. Obviously the sacks in the previous games have thrown us out of rhythm. It's just every guy. It's you versus him. You got to block the guy in front of you. You also have to get the play call. It's just us being efficient, playing good football.
Is there things that you do with like a scout team that says, "Hey, try this because we want to simulate the possibility of something we've never seen"?
Yeah, I mean we don't go out and just block just the blitzes that they've run. We block like the blitzes that they run, the blitzes that we're seeing that people are giving us. We have rules to everything. It's going to come down to our players making plays. I think that's the greatest gift you can give as a coach. When things go wrong, it's your job to say, "Hey, that's on us." But I think our players know that players win games, and they have to go make blocks, and they have to go make catches, and they have to do things at a really high level versus an excellent Northwestern team.
On Tuesday, many of your players said they felt they took their foot off the gas in practice last week. How do you feel practice has gone this week?
Yeah, I don't think they took the gas off of practice. I never felt that way last week. I don't feel that way this week. They've practiced at a high level. Practice was a little different last week in that it was a short week. But I think the best thing they can do is what I've done is only think about last week when you guys ask about it, just try to move forward. But understanding that what happened last week has to spur us forward.
How has Rocco's pain tolerance been as the week's gone along?
Rocco's as tough as they come. He wants to play, so he'll go out and play as long as he can. He's handled it this week, so we'll just see how the game goes.
What does that kind of say about him, though? That he's even to that point and going through it.
Yeah, he broke his finger, ran off the field, tried to get him to adjust it back into his hand. Had to be taken to an emergency room to do it. Came back and was in the locker room, and just saying, "Coach, I'm so sorry. What happened?" More concerned about the game than anything else. He's a winner.
As you've gone through the week, what has stood out to you about Northwestern's run game?
They're unbelievably well coached up front, and they're unbelievably talented up front. Their offensive line's excellent. They have good run checks, and the backs make people miss. It's going to come down to our ability to get off blocks and make tackles. If we're diving at people's ankles, we haven't done that really for 2 years. We've been doing it at times, not all the time. That's the really hard thing. It's like, it's a 74-yard run, and then it's just kind of, 3-yard run, 2-yard run. I think the biggest thing is you can't let 1st and 10 become 2nd and 5 because they hit them for 3 yards and they pulled you forward for 2 more. And, but their backs they have great bursts. They're athletic. They're as good of backs that we'll see. They have home run ability, which you have to be perfect against to take away those angles.
Is there another point in your coaching history that you draw upon on a week like this when you're trying to move on from last week and maybe learning how not to do it from the past or something that's helped?
I think you always, every week, win or lose, you have to move on from the previous week. As I said, the only time I think about last week is when I'm sitting here with you guys, and I mean respectfully, like, my whole week is on Northwestern, right? If we would have won last week, if we would have lost last week, if what happened last week changes your level of preparation, then you weren't doing enough to begin with. And so our guys work really hard. Again, I think anybody who said, well, we didn't practice, I think sometimes they don't know how to answer. I listen to some of the questions, they don't know how to answer them. They want to give you guys something. We got in the game last week, and it was a close ball game deep into the third quarter, which we have to become very comfortable with. Maybe we didn't expect that, which is all we expect. But they know what's coming in here. They know that this is a team that's won 4 straight, went to Happy Valley and beat Penn State, shut out Purdue, beat a hot UCLA team. They know how good Northwestern is.
It was a 5-5 rule officially getting shelved through next year. Does that impact how you handle potential red shirts pretty much the same as
Yeah, we had indication that it would probably. At one point, I said I thought it would pass, and then it kind of swung the other way. And I think in talking to leadership, I think people think it'll get passed eventually. So you think about the guys the Pierce Mooberries and guys like that got to their 4 games, and then the Willis McGahees, sure would love to have those guys playing a couple snaps and thinking like, hey, in the future, I'm very grateful for the parents, the people that I coached. Like I had one really great set of parents say to me, Coach, what would you do if it was Bryant? And I had to really think about that. And I said, I would probably redshirt him because I can't guarantee you that 5 for 5 will go through. It'll just be a shame if someday we look back and kids could have played another 8 games, even if it was just a small amount. But I just saw a kid from the NBA G League just got somewhere. So it's just lawyers somewhere. It's not what's right for the kids. The 5 for 5 should absolutely pass. So hopefully, the Brett Bielema's of the world, the guys I respect, who are leading that on a coaching side, will team up and get it all passed, and we can get past the whole should I play 4 games, not play 4, all that stuff.
Is Malcom Harrzog part of that conversation?
He was. I think at the end, in the last couple of days, we've decided, or Malcolm's decided to go have surgery and try to get himself healthy. Maybe can even come back, for postseason. But that was just sort of like hey, let's rehab him, get him close. We just every time we got close, he had a little bit of a setback. But that would certainly be a case of a guy who's only played 2 games. So. But for his sake, he'll have a redshirt year now.
What is the actual nature of his injury?
I don't know. It's his groin, so it's I don't know if that's abductor or adductor. It's one of those words, but so it'll be sort of like one of those core muscle injuries you can come back from. Usually in about 6 or so weeks. But you're asking kids to make bets on the future that they don't know. And so honestly, it'll probably take someone like last year going to court and suing to have the rule be remedied. And I know that, like our basketball coaches, our football coach, we're all trying to figure out hey, as you're taking care of, coaching your team as best you can this year, but getting ready for next year, hey, what will that mean? So I think it'll pass at some point, but as I said, my job is to do right by every kid on this team as best I can, and all I know right now is that it didn't pass.
The finality with Malcom, does that change how you guys approach the nickel spot? And I know Sierra's been over there some. Does that kind of continue as it's been?
No, we haven't had him since I think he got hurt right before they did that light show and put up his picture, so that was the last moment for Malcom, unfortunately for him. So we've gone full board with Sierra's the nickel, Donnie and Marshall the corners, and then Amari and Jeremiah ready to roll, and Jameer Khan got in the last game, played well, so those will be our guys, and I'm pretty sure everyone's banged up at this point of the year. Pretty sure Northwestern has some guys that are banged up. I don't know. It comes down to a war of wills and who wants to play. And so, guys like Rocco, give me great V9, give me great hope.
Anything else?
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks.